Welcome to Trauma Recovery Anonymous, the podcast. My name is Richard and I am your host. As you all know by now, I'm a Christian trauma recovery coach. And for many people who are church hurt or have issues around God or God's been used as a weapon against them, my program can be challenging for some folks. So on this podcast, I try to find people who have another way, a different path to treat with trauma. And today's guest, without any exception, is Donna Donahue. Donna has come from her own journey of trauma. She'll talk about that later. She's been working 35 years as a psychotherapist, helping people overcome trauma, deal with trauma, live with the symptoms. She's got coping skills, she's got techniques, she's got simple practices. We're going to soak her of everything she has to share tonight. Please God, it'll give you something to carry forward. So Donna, very welcome. Thank you for coming on to my podcast.
Oh, and thank you, Richie. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, now the floor is yours. Jump in there and wherever you want to start, go.
Okay. Well, I'll start out with I experienced multiple sexual assaults as a child, starting from the age of 4 to the age of 9 or 10, and had like an amnesia. It just completely was 100% repressed. So I had a lot of behaviors for many years that I just didn't understand, like starting to smoke and drink at 9 years old, and had this family that looked like, great family, middle class, loving parents. And I could never figure out why I had this intense need to numb and distract. I was a very active kid. Many trauma survivors present as they have ADHD, when really it's what I call trauma brain, because when you're experiencing traumas, repeated traumas in childhood, it pushes energy that's supposed to be forming the frontal cortex into the reptilian brain for survival. So that caused attention issues, multiple learning disabilities, which was quite a struggle in school, especially back then when a lot of people didn't know what dyslexia was and all that. So I went along. I became a master people pleaser, which is another common complex trauma presentation, and would just hide anything negative from myself and everybody else through my numbing behaviors. Then 20s, I got my college degree in computer science, which was quite a feat with my issues, and worked in that field for a while, and then got married and got my master's in clinical social work. And sometime around my late 20s, I started therapy. I was in therapy a good decade on and off before I even had my first memory. So right around 43 years old, at this point, I was having a lot of mood issues, weeks and weeks of severe agitation, depression, a lot of anxiety, just trying to keep going and function and be a good mom and be a good wife and live my life. But drinking started escalating in my early 40s to the point where I was afraid I was going to engage with alcohol during the day when I'm driving my kids and stuff. Terrified me. I was actively talking to my husband about my struggle. I decided to go to AA. Thank God I did that. So I went to AA, I got a sponsor in the first week, and within a week of not drinking, which was really keeping those memories down, my sponsor had a threatening discussion with me while I was on the phone. You do what I want, or, that type of thing, giving me some tough love. And it triggered me. I was so raw and vulnerable, thank God, on a deserted back road. But I went into a full-blown flashback, pulled over, fighting for my life in my car. A lot of emotional and physical memories, but no visual. So I couldn't see. I didn't know what was happening. But it was so intense. I thought I was going to break my teeth. I coughed up some blood. It was really brutal. Drove home in some kind of a trance, a dissociated trance. Told my husband something horrible just happened, but I don't know what it was. So I was going to my meetings, and I was at a women's AA meeting, and I shared this experience. And one of the women pulled me aside and said, Donna, I think you're having flashbacks. You need help. So I we have a local agency in our county that whether you were assaulted yesterday or 40 years ago, they don't care. They give you free help. So they explained what a godsend, all the psychoeducation about what was happening to me, what these things were called. It really gave me hope. I was like, oh my God, you mean you know what's happening? This has happened to other people and they can actually heal? So that was huge. I continued with AA for some time, and over a period of 2 years had periodic these flashbacks where I would 100% dissociate, go down to the ground, and be fighting for my life. The healing work was intense. There was a lot of suicidal ideation, days where I was catatonic with a phone in my lap, afraid that I was going to kill myself. When this intensity came in is when I had a spiritual awakening. I was blown away. It seemed, I guess I felt like I needed an army of help. So the Virgin Mary, Jesus, Kuan Yin, Kali, Buddha, like I was having these visions when I would be in these deep states where they were coming to me and comforting me and reassuring me. Jesus became the most prevalent figure over time, where there were days where I kept seeing him like carrying me through a valley, holding me up when I couldn't. And my young parts of self were really revealing themselves. There were very distinct ages, like a toddler self, a baby self, a toddler self, a school, like grammar school age, adolescent, and teen. And I was having these conversations with them, and I would tell my therapist at first, I was like, am I going insane? Am I hallucinating? And she said, no, Donna, you're embarking on a journey of healing with your inner children that need your help. I was like, oh, okay. It was so helpful to be assisted and reassured by professionals that I wasn't going insane. And that trauma really isn't a mental disorder, complex trauma or PTSD. It is a soul wound, a deep wounding that needs spiritual, professional, a big support system. And do you want to say something, Richie?
I love that you said that it's a soul sickness. That's my take on it. When I work with people, I try to get them to, where I come from, it's slightly different. I see it as what happened to me at the age of 12 happened to a 12-year-old child. It didn't happen to the 65-year-old man I am today. And I only exist today. So I can't be a 12-year-old child and a 65-year-old man. I carry the memory of what happened to that 12-year-old child, which was horrific. And I carry sympathy pains for him because of his loss of innocence. But he suffered the loss of innocence, not the 65-year-old man who today is a husband and a father. And, you know, I carry a memory of what happened to a child. It didn't happen to me. So I don't get to walk around saying I was molested as a child because it didn't happen to a 65-year-old man. That's the way I try to come at it. So there's a hole in our soul, and we have to heal the hole in our soul. And it's not the memory, because the memory, if I'm really truthful, it didn't happen to me. So it's not my memory, but there's a terrible energy attached to the memory. And that's what's been seeping into my life in the present, and it's eating away at my soul. And I have to find a way of removing that energy from my psyche, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to get it shifted. And the only way I feel I can do that is by giving it back to that young 12-year-old child. Like, he's there saying, give me back my crap so I can step into the light and you can go off and have a life with Bo and the kids. Like, you know, but don't be giving life to my dead thing, because you wouldn't be alive today if I hadn't overcome it. The fact that you're alive today means I overcame it. So you have to let me go. I want to step into the light and go to our parents and grandparents and be safe. But I can't go until you give me all my baggage. So that's the kind of, I think it is. When you mention it's a soul wound, I love that. That resonated with me deeply, because I feel it was a soul sickness. Science says it's about cause and effect. The cause is something happened in the past. The effect is how it manifests in our lives. But the effect is never the problem. But that's what all the disorders are. My depression, which I suffered for years, was the effect of what I was carrying, the demons I was carrying from my childhood. So how I was presenting was a depression. But depression wasn't the problem. The problem was what happened to a 12-year-old child in my past. So again, just when you said soul, I'm smiling here thinking, well, I've met somebody on the same page. So continue, Donna. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, I'm grateful that you shared your experience, because our healing journeys are really unique to us. There are many parallels of common things that occur with complex trauma survivors, but our context of trauma is different, and the way we heal from it varies. So for me, for whatever reasons, I needed to spiritually reparent my younger parts. So I would carry in my mind my baby self, toddler self in a sling on my body. I would check in throughout the day. And it's like I was filling the voids that weren't able to be filled at those times, which quieted them down. So I didn't realize that all those years that I was walking around looking like an adult, but little Donna was running the show. And I was responding to things and she was dealing with things that she couldn't handle because she's not an adult. Right?
I've got to say, Donna.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did the same reparenting as you. I joined ACOA and I got to reparent my inner child, and I would bring him down to the trees. We'd hug trees together. We'd swim and fish, and that was a part of the journey that I needed to do. I needed to connect with my inner child in a way that I felt was good for both of us. Again, there are many different ways. It's like me, I'm a Christian trauma therapist. Not everybody wants to do the Christian way. They want to do maybe the Buddha or Allah or holistic or dreams or whatever. I'm not saying my way is the only way. I'm just trying to say, and I get that reparenting. I was very much an adult child. I was an adult, but I was acting like a child around people. I was more comfortable with young children as an adult than I was with adults. I felt so out of it. We'd go to a picnic and I would say, isn't Richie great with the kids? The truth was, I felt really comfortable with the kids. I felt uncomfortable with the adults. So yeah, I get you completely. And so I want the audience to know, I'm not saying reparenting your inner child is not good. I found it very beneficial, as Donna's explained to you now.
Yes, wonderful. And what I realized is that my younger parts they were alone when these events were happening, other than the perpetrator. So they needed a loving witness, not to feel completely alone with their trauma and their devastation, and to be accepted for whatever they were feeling, because they, as children, were egocentric. So we believe that everything that's happening around us has to do with us. And if bad things keep happening, well, this must be me. I must be defective. That is the seat of shame. So we blame ourselves, and we may not even know it. It took me years to even get at that. We blame ourselves. We have the shame, forms of shame, and then that feeds self-hatred, which also can be 100% hidden too, unless the person's doing deep work. So I needed to just allow my child selves to have their beliefs, be accepted, and then start teaching them, hey, there's another way to look at this. This is the way an adult would look at it. An adult would look at it that the perpetrators were criminals. They chose to commit a crime and to hurt someone. You were just walking around being a kid. So this really isn't on you. And so as I did that work, I found that I could stay in my adult self more and more of the time, that these younger parts would quiet down. I created a whole safe house for them with loved ones in spirit that guarded it, and anything they wanted would show up as long as it was strengthening. So no substances would show up for my adolescent and teen. Anyway, the journey kept going, and what I found is that really facing these feelings, this terror and this rage head on, was literally clearing it out, and along with it, symptoms. So it's been over 15 years since I've had a horrific trauma nightmare, which just devastated me night after night for years. I can't remember the last time that I, was so triggered that I couldn't function or haven't had a flashback since I was 45. Like, so there are certain symptoms that are like 100% not here, and there are other symptoms that are still here, but they're manageable. And I have these effective toolboxes, and I'm self-aware, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm feeling really vulnerable. I need to like watch who I'm around at this point.
Donna,
go ahead.
Tell us about these toolboxes. I'm really excited about your
toolboxes. Yeah. So there's a self-soothing toolbox. So for me, a lot of times resting is what I need when I'm feeling overwhelmed or an emotional activation. I'm working with myself. And a big part of that self-soothing is how I talk to myself. So I used to be emotionally abusive with myself, just speak to myself in a way I would never speak to any other human being. It took me years to even become aware that I was doing that. And then I'd say, okay, Donna, what would you say to your friend or your husband or your child? And then I would say it out loud. And I'd say, okay, now I want you to repeat that to yourself. So I had to like train myself, right? Because I had a super highway of neurons on how to abuse myself. Now I was building brick by brick a new neuronal pathway in my brain about kindness, compassion, reassurance, showing up for myself as a loving presence. So in this toolbox, I learned there's really only two ways of being. We're either extending love or we're calling for love. So anytime I'm acting out or somebody else is acting out, it's a call for love. We usually respond the opposite with judgment, punishment. And all that does is escalate the behavior because it's not effective.
That's fantastic. I love the idea if we treat every kind of conflict or connection as a call for love. It really is a fantastic concept. I love the idea of love and gratitude. But I want to share one thing with you that I found I use in my early days of my inner child work. I had to speak to my inner child, and I was told to write a letter. So I write with I'm left-handed, so I write with my left hand, "Dear little Richie," at the bottom I write down, "Love Richie." And then I write what I need to say on that page. When I turn the page over, I use my right hand, my non-dominant hand, and that activates my subconscious mind because it's not my normal hand for writing. And it looks like a child writing or an old person when you write with your non-dominant hand. And because I write with my non-dominant hand, it activates my subconscious mind that I'm not in control of what I write. So when I write to myself, I'm writing from that of the inner child, and what I write, he'll be in control of. I have no control of what I say. So in the first page, I get to bitch, moan, whatever I need to say, just, whatever. When I turn it over and he writes to me, I'm defending him. That's the agreement, is I'm writing for him on his behalf. But then once I make that declaration, when I start writing, it's not me in control. The pen just flows in a way that and it's like either it looks like a child writing or an old person. It's really quite a beautiful, you may like to try it sometime. It's a really cool way of, I use it for God when my parents died, that anger towards God. I went, "Dear God, love Richie," and then I had "Dear Richie, love God," and it wasn't nice and then I've done it with people who my abusers, whatever. People I couldn't speak to face, they feel they needed to be heard. I used this letter thing where I wrote to them first and then they wrote back to me. But I had to write that I was defending them, which was really, when you're writing to your abuser and you're writing back and you're defending them, it really throws a spanner in the works about being a victim. It gets you to look at things from a different perspective. So anyway, I want to share that with you for coming on tonight. Keep going, Don. I'm loving this.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. And I just learned a new thing. So thank you about the writing with the less dominant hand. Yeah. So, go ahead.
No. I was going to say, go ahead. I want to say I'm glad I gave you something.
Yes, I appreciate that. And then I can share it with my clients too, which is wonderful. So the healing journey has been 35 years, but I only started my therapy practice 12 years ago. So it was a second career for me. And I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years in between the two careers. And I needed to be, because that's when all the healing work, I had to have that flexibility when the kids were at school to work on myself. Really important to learn to receive help when you are a complex trauma survivor. Used to be I had to help everybody else. And it's like, no, now you need to receive. So I would say when a crisis time would come, I call it calling in the troops, like use every available resource. I give myself permission to do what I need to do to heal this moment. And so the healing work continued. I was absolutely terrified of my rage. My therapist kept reassuring me, it's not going to hurt you or anybody else. It's you, it's in you, and you need to give it a context to be outside of you in a safe way. So I learned about beating the crap out of a pillow, writing uncensored journal entries. And this came from a place of young, concrete, needing justice. They were pretty violent, where my child selves would take an axe to the perpetrator. My adult self knew that what I was working towards was forgiveness for release, but that I had to honor that my child selves needed justice. They had been hurt so many times. So I started kickboxing, which was fantastic. I would picture the perpetrators on the bag and beat the hell out of them and people who hurt my clients. Yeah. And then I learned about the value of the calming body movements. Like Kundalini yoga is my favorite form of yoga because it incorporates a lot of breath work. And breath work releases trauma.
Yeah,
yes, and Qigong. So I do Kundalini yoga, Qigong, a lot of breathing and working with being present. So in this soothing, getting back to the soothing toolbox, the breathing and the being present, like which I've learned from The Power of Now and the Untethered Soul books, which were great teachers.
Stuff, yeah, great.
Yeah, on how to do this.
My favorite.
I work on it every day because when we're fully present, we have peace. We are not connected to our fear mind going back and forward. We're here. We can look around. We can see that we're safe and we can take care of ourselves. And we get clarity when we're present. We really get clarity as we're our own, as Eckhart calls it, the watcher, like our higher self, our true self. So self-care toolbox self-soothing is also about self-care. I learned that I had to deal with my ADD type behaviors with a lot, building a container of structure, which I avoided for years and resisted. But now it's like a beautiful calming gift. And I learned that I had to make sure I had enough sleep, good nutrition, exercise, socializing, time alone. I had to learn how to sit quietly. Like for years, I couldn't do that. I did it in 5 minutes, 1 minute, then 5 minutes, and you slowly work your way up to it. We resist things mostly just because they're unfamiliar. It's nothing about bad or good. We don't know it. So we keep going. I always say tenacity. I call the energy the tenacious turtle energy. You just keep going. You might take steps back. You might need to take a healing break from your work. Take a day off. It's okay. Allow it. But always keep going. And so this learning to be present becomes a practice, a daily practice. And it's soothing to all aspects of self.
Well,
and you also have done this, Richie?
Yeah, there's three things I kind of share. One is the idea of we always strive to be moving forward, but it's okay to take a break. I try to suggest to my clients, don't go backwards. You can stop even for a week. You can stop where you are and just do nothing. And like go to bed for a week if you have to. You can go and just have food or something, not drinking or anything. I'm a recovering alcoholic as well. I'm 38 years sober. So no acting out with drugs or alcohol or whatever. But if you want to have a good nap or just stop working for a few days to give yourself time to just recharge, that's okay. Just try not to go backwards. So even if you have to stay in one place, you're not going backwards. Like if that's still progress, you're sitting still, like be still and know your God kind of thing. If you can sit still whatever. Go and play computer games for a few hours just to kind of take your mind off what's going on. And then when you feel ready, start moving forward again. And baby steps are fine. The baby steps, you climb a mountain, your baby steps, a year later, you look back and you find you're at the top of the mountain. You're wondering, I couldn't climb this mountain the first day, and here I am at the top. But it took you a year, but it's baby steps. It doesn't matter how you get there, just as long as you're moving in the right direction. That's one thing. The Christian thing I really embraced, because I had to up with my anger, like you shared yourself, and forgiving my abusers. And then I this old elderly, I was trying to find my faith. I've been raised a Roman Catholic, lost complete faith in the Roman Catholic faith, became disillusioned with religion, believed that because I didn't embrace the Roman Catholic faith, I couldn't have God, because the only true religion was Roman Catholic. That's what I was brought up to believe. And so I'm lost for many years. And then I meet this pastor, and he says to me, if you want to get even with your abuser, you have to pray for them and pray that they get everything that you want in your life for them. Because then, when they die, they'll face the wrath of God. But if you seek vengeance and justice on this earth while they're alive and while you're alive, it means that when they die, they get to go to heaven. You can't have your cake and eat it. Either it's God's wrath or it's your wrath. And he said, what happens if you were able to take him to court? Maybe you took this guy to court, and it's like 50 years later, and they kind of go, well, the jails are full with serious criminals, and this is like 50 years old. Let's give him 6 months and a slap in the wrist. Would you be okay with that penance? And I'm kind of going, no way. Like, I want this guy to burn over the fires of hell for eternity. But then you have a choice. Either it's your wrath and he gets a slap in the wrist and he's out in the mud, or you give to God. And that was the way I wanted to find some way of giving my wrath to God and letting this person suffer the wrath of him. And that's why I kind of went down the Christian path. There was something else I wanted to say, but I've got lost in my thoughts. So continue, please. Oh, yeah. I learned about meditation, and I could, like lady sitting still. I thought meditation was holding your thumb and your forefinger together, sitting in lotus position, chanting Om and clearing your mind. And I was never able to do that. My mind is so rampant, I couldn't do that. And then this old elderly priest said, try just meditating on gratitude, or try meditating on joy, or try meditating on good feelings. He said that a prayer, I didn't see a dream and a nightmare, is what thoughts you bring in. So if you bring in negative thoughts and angry thoughts, you're going to have a nightmare. But if you can fill your mind with like dream prayer, dream the most wonderful thing in the world, have John Wayne the cowboy in it, and have like your man, the movie star, that Star Wars star, and all this kind of stuff, and everyone you want to be in it to make it an exciting adventure, and dream the most exciting adventure with all the people who want to be in it, and then stop and keep doing that dream, and it'll come true for you. And that was that I learned I needed to change my thinking and replace my old thinking with new thinking. So again, you set up an awful lot for me. Really loving this talk. Keep going, Donna. Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, so am I. So I would just want to, I think we may be thinking of the step back a little differently. So I want to clarify what I meant by that. Okay. So step backs were usually when I was getting a healing break and thinking, because the mind will give me healing breaks, so that we could gather strength for the next round. And then I would get hit with the next thing, and I would go to my therapist and say, I'm not making any progress. Why am I visiting this again? Really aggravated. And she'd say, that's not what's happening. When you step back, there's something new coming in that you're working with, and the step back is a precursor to a bigger step forward. It's part of the journey of healing and moving forward.
I understand that completely. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I mistook what you said. I get that completely. It's like you're walking up one step, and suddenly there's a bigger step, and you have to step back so you can jump up on it. Yeah, I get that completely. Yes, sorry. If I confuse any of the audience, my bad, not Donna's, my bad, my apologies. Keep going, Donna. Thank you very much for clarifying that.
You're welcome. And, forgiveness is setting a prisoner free, and that prisoner is you, the person healing. And so what I noticed that I thought was really interesting in hindsight was the way the levels or waves of forgiveness. It first started out that I got really angry at my mother, who was not my perpetrator, realizing that she was a safe place to put it. So I blamed her for like not protecting. I mean, she had no way of knowing that these things were happening. So that was where my mind needed to put it to begin with. So I started working on forgiveness with her. Then it moved to the perpetrators. And I had some really amazing visions with that work. Like one day I was praying and meditating and just trying to calm myself. And all of a sudden I saw 8 men lined up, and I had this big, like a saber in my hand, and I like took all their heads off in one swoop. And I fell to my knees and started crying and saying, this really isn't what I want or need. And Jesus came to me and he said, what you need is forgiveness. You need to forgive them. They know not what they are or what they have done. And so I started working on it, and I would tell my younger parts, you don't have to do this if you're not ready. Like, we will go on your timeline when you feel a need to do this. But many times they would join me at the correct age of the person I was working with, and I would feel tremendous peace come over me. The last frontier of the forgiveness was self. Was really getting in there and finding all those misbeliefs, those irrational beliefs about it being my fault, working with them, correcting them, having compassion about them, and forgiving myself over and over. And one of those visions, my child self, was in this massive hand that I interpreted as God's hand, and she was vomiting over and over and over. And this is a common thing with release work, that this can happen either visualizing or actually physically doing it. And she was so ashamed that God was going to see all her badness. And so I heard this very clear voice coming in, you are my child, and I love you unconditionally. I am here for you. And he just completely embraced me. And I can't tell you how healing that was, how much peace.
I wish people could find some way of getting past the church hurt and the idea of using God as a weapon. Priests, pastors, they can use God as a weapon, but that doesn't make God bad. It's like if someone crashed a car into a group of people, you never drive that. You never not drive that car again. It's the driver of the car that's the problem, and so on. We see school shootings. It isn't the gun. It's the person who pulled the trigger. There's so much solace and compassion and peace of mind in allowing God. I like to tell people that we're all children of God. We're perfect exactly as we are, with all our defects, all our shortcomings, all our doubts, and all our insecurities. Others can do what we can do, but nobody can do what we can do with our energy. That's what makes us so unique and so special. God has never made a mistake in all of creation. He's never made one mistake. He's not starting with you or I. He created you for a reason. You're on this earth for a reason and a purpose. Your reason is to move mountains. I don't know what your mountains are, but that's the reason you were created. And he wants you to achieve that. And most of us are like phoenixes coming out of ashes. I think he chooses people who have suffered to be his angels, his warriors on this earth. I think people who suffered with trauma, abuse, any kind of trauma event or any kind of crime against them, they're the ones he chooses. You look at all his disciples, they all came from something which empowered them to be something greater. You know, I really do believe that when you've suffered trauma, it sounds terrible, but it's like God has chosen you because you've come through the fires to move mountains. To like Nelson Mandela, put in jail for how many years for doing nothing wrong except his colour of his skin. He goes on to free South Africa. This has happened again and again. You know, Donna Donahue, you know, suffers trauma. 35 years later, she's working with people with trauma, and she's worked with her in her work. She's a psychologist. You wonder how people, and I have to say this, Donna, people, how they rise from the ashes of terrible trauma to become a prominent figure in their society, able to have family and children, and then to go on to come on podcasts and share their experience, strength, and hope, and be so kind and empathetic. And I used to always worry about having someone in talking honestly on a podcast. Would that be triggering for somebody? But I think when we speak the truth and we're giving solutions, we're not trigger based. And if someone is being triggered, this is the work you need to do. You know, I don't want you to play the role of victim. Oh, I'm being triggered by Donna or something, I'm going to run away. this is what you need to do. What Donna's sharing with you, you need to do this because this is where you are. Otherwise, you're going to be triggered forever. So Donna isn't here to trigger you. I'm not here to trigger you. I like to tell people that what we say, we're not targeting you. You're not our victim. If you're affected by it, you're collateral damage. It was never about you. It was about Donna sharing her story, my sharing my story, hoping to help somebody. And if you're affected in a negative way, you're collateral damage, but you're not the victim. If you can learn going into your life today, whatever happened in your past, you're no longer anybody's victim. So if your parents give out to you or somebody doesn't understand you, that's just them not understanding. You're not the victim. They may be giving you grief. Your parents may tell you to clean your room or why aren't you doing something or whatever. That's just their insecurities. It's nothing to do with you. You're not the victim. Just decide from this moment forward in your life, you're not a victim. It'll empower you you won't believe how it'll empower you if you can just drop the label of victim. Donna, next please, sorry.
Oh, no, that's great. When you were talking about, there were so many things going through my mind. So let's see, the ashes. So I wrote a book years ago called Witness Awakening, Finding Peace and Healing in the Midst of Childhood Trauma. I wrote it towards the end of my crisis phase, around 45 years old. And it came from 20 years of journals is the basis of it. So it took me 9 years because of all my learning issues. It was quite a challenge, but it's part self-help and part memoir. And in the book, I share many journal entries. A lot of process poetry was coming through, the visions, and a lot of drawings I would notice would just show up. And this one particular drawing at the beginning of the crisis phase kept showing up where it was, first it's my face, just a face. Then it's a face with a lot of lines, cracks. The next face, they're coming apart at the seams. And then the next one, it's literally disintegration, a pile of ashes on the ground. And the last image is this gold sprout rises up like a phoenix right out of the ashes. And that is what I pray for all survivors to find, that gold sprout. That gold sprout is when we have taken victim energy and transformed it into thriver, warrior, powerful energy. It is the same energy, but it is transmuted.
I love this. When I talk to people, I talk about, that the child was the victim, we're the survivor. And then we get to become the victor. And then I saw yours where it says from victim to survivor to thriver, I think it was. Was it thriver? Victim to survivor to thriver, yeah. And then I had a person on the podcast and they said, you go from victim to helper. I like that because, Jesus helper, the Holy Spirit. And I think what you're doing is a helper. I mean, I was very, very big into victim to survivor to know that we're not the same, we're not the sufferer of that today, that we're survivor today. But the idea of a helper, I think, is a lovely idea that we're not just getting healed and then going on about our life and keeping it quiet. We're stepping into, you're a qualified professional. I'm not I've done all these holistic practices and all these spiritual practices and I found my faith again. I'm a member of AA. That doesn't count for anything. I could drink tomorrow. But coming from nowhere, I'm trying to be a helper. I really like that idea of being a helper. And the Bible talks about God's helper is the Holy Spirit. And even Mary was Jesus' helper. I want to say, there's so much that you come to understand how powerful it is to be a helper, And again, people coming onto this podcast might find something you share that really blows them away and gives them a new lease of life. And this is what I love. I share it many times is that, can you imagine, Donna, if you and I together, we reach one soul who finds an excuse to let go of their trauma and become whole again. And they go on to have a family and then they raise children. And in 3 or 4 generations, one of their children creates a cure for cancer or AIDS. You and I will never get the accolades or the recognition for our part we played in this, but God alone, that's all that matters. And that's what gets me coming back every time to do this. We are the helpers. I'm not looking for a medal. I'm not looking for a badge of honor or payment for being on this podcast. But just we're striving not for ego. We're striving just to be a helper to another person. And I like that. It was a podcast I did yesterday, and the lady said from victim to helper, and that really has been resonating with me over and over about that's what we're doing. Like we are, maybe victim to survivor to helper to victor. I think it's a really cool It needs to be put in there, I think.
Yes, it is. And to me, helper is under the thriver umbrella, that is part of the thriving. It's because so many showed up and carried me through physically and spiritually that it is an honor and a privilege to be able to do that for somebody else. The last thing I wanted to say about the book is that I read 50 survivor memoirs before I wrote my book, and I was really frustrated because nobody was telling me how did they heal. What they told me their trauma story, they would give me some vague stuff. So my book is about from one survivor to another, telling them the story, but what did I actually say to little Donna? What did I do? What types of therapies? How did I build toolboxes? There's a lot of psychoeducation in the book too, and in the indexes. But the whole point of it is like I'm sitting across the table from another survivor and sharing with them, how I went from victim to survivor to thriver/helper.
Donna, that's pretty. So will you give me one more major plug out loud? Witness Awakening. Tell me about the book, where they can get it, what it sells for. Jump in, give me a big plug. This is what people need. They need tools that they can implement themselves.
So the book title is, like I said, Witness Awakening. And the reason why I said that, Witness Awakening, is because I became a witness to my own awakening. It's the author's name on it is Marie McCarthy. That's my middle name, and my grandmother, who was a mother figure's maiden name. My children were younger, and I just didn't want them to get any backlash from other kids.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And when I tried to change it to my actual name, now that they're adults, I was going to lose so much on Amazon. So it's on Amazon. And if you Google the title and Marie McCarthy, it should come up. Can you put a link for the book on your podcast?
I will indeed. I'd be happy to. So it's Witness Awakening by Marie McCarthy, McCarthy.
Yes.
Marie, and then it's not MAC, it's MC McCarthy. That's right. I think MC McCarthy is the Scottish, and MAC McCarthy is the Welsh or something, or the Irish. I'm not sure how that works anyway. So, and it's called Witness Awakening, and it's on Amazon platform in digital and in paperback.
Yes, in digital and in paper. It's inexpensive. Somebody's helping me with the marketing right now. It's probably around $12, maybe less, for the book.
Fantastic.
And so totally doable. If anyone wants to contact me, they can at Donna. witnessawakening@gmail.com. And also they can find me if they Google Psychology Today directory and put Donna Donahue, my whole profile comes up. They can email, they can call, they can, if they're looking for assistance. However, I can only do therapy at this point to someone who is in New Jersey, but New Jersey's in the process of joining a pact of 30 other states. So by the end of the year, hopefully the license will be good in other places in the U.S.
But will you be able to do like Zoom and online abroad for now, or is it only in Jersey only for online as well?
They specify that they want us, if we're licensed in New Jersey. I could be anywhere in the world, but my client has. It's so ridiculous in this day and age. They haven't caught up yet, Richie. They'll get there.
Well, and do you have a podcast yourself?
I don't. This is
not yet. Watch out for Donna Donahue, the podcast, or Mary McCarthy's the podcast. I think, I think what you have to offer is phenomenal. I wasn't going to finish it just yet. I was going to ask you for a few tips, like if you could maybe share three either exercises, three practices. We've talked about the soothing toolbox, which is really, really wonderful. And I've mentioned meditation on gratitude or on one subject. Is there any other tools you could kind of, and when we've spoken about the food you put into our body and getting enough sleep and all the other things. It's not just mental. It's not just medication. It's a case of not putting in drugs and alcohol and nicotine and vaping. Try not to put that stuff in your body. Get 8 hours sleep, cleaning yourself, having showers. Some people find it very hard to have showers. They go into this place where they feel they can't be clean on the outside because that doesn't really portray the deep feeling of despair they feel on the inside. So what I like to suggest, you can have a cheat day. Don't tell anybody. Go at home when no one's around and have a cheat day. Go into the bathroom, brush your teeth, go to the toilet, wash your hands, and even have a cold shower. Allow yourself to have a cheat day once a month, once a year, once a month rather than once a year, and then maybe you'll do it once a week, and maybe you'll do once a day. You're going to allow yourself to brush your teeth, and once a day you're going to wash your face with soap and water. Start allowing yourself little cheat days. Like we said it before about you don't have to keep going all the time. You can stop and you can ponder and you can have a sleep, play some computer games, take your mind off the trauma work for a moment. We don't have to burn ourselves out getting healed today. It can be a process. In AA, we talk about if you drank for 20 years, it may take you 20 years to clear away the wreckage of your past. Don't try to do this all in one day. Allow yourself, be kind and loving. Again, Donna touched on it before. If a friend of yours was in trouble, you'd be kind and loving to them. Imagine you're the friend and you're talking to yourself and saying, okay, Richard, take it easy. You can relax now and go and have an ice cream or go for a swim or go and have a nap. Watch something on your TikTok or YouTube or watch a movie, or you love Agatha Christie, go watch an Agatha Christie movie for 45 minutes and then come back and do 5 minutes work and go off, do something else and do 5 minutes at a time. You might do 10 5 minutes, that's 50 minutes. You do an hour in if you do it over half a day or something. So be kind to yourself. Donna, a few tips you might have, we'd love to hear from you.
Yes, I'm so glad that you brought back around the being kind. So checking in with self is huge. Like before a person's going to say yes to something, offer their time, take a moment. See, how does this feel in my body if I say yes to this? Is this for me? Because sometimes we're overdoing. When we say no, many times we're opening the door for somebody who's supposed to learn something. And we're taking that away from them. So when we honor what feels right, we're saying yes at a time that would be strengthening for us. So checking in with self and giving yourself a chance to say no or modify, or maybe you need to check in with yourself when you're around certain people and give yourself permission to leave. If the person's having emotional flashbacks or any form of flashbacks, they're really getting present with their body. Like first, connect with your breath. Breathing in. How far down is it going? How does it feel exiting it or entering my nostrils? Connect with the breath. That brings that mind that's going back or forward back here to the body. And then, what's the air temperature like? Look at my feet. Where are you, Donna? Look around. It's safe. There is no threat here. Maybe check in for any scents or sounds. Do an internal scan if you have an extra moment. See if you're feeling a sensation in your body. Many times, when we're feeling a sensation in our body, it's a part of ourself. If you prescribe to the internal family systems idea of the different parts of self, usually trying to get our attention. So if I'm getting a distinct sensation, I'm here for you. I don't even have to know what part it is. I got you. I'm handling it. You can literally midwife yourself through each moment by showing up for yourself. If you're in a tough, triggering situation, you can make choices. So I will either picture a golden bubble around me and the person's energy, I'm watching it bouncing off, and I'm saying, that's not mine. Let them be who they are. I have no control. That's not my responsibility. My responsibility is to be a gatekeeper to myself and keep me, my adult self, and my child self safe. And I don't absorb other people's stuff. I let them have theirs, and I'm a witness. If it's more intense, I'm in an old-fashioned phone booth, or I'm in knight's armor. And if it's really intense and I can't get out of it, I'm in a tank looking through the little... It's just a visual to remind myself that I don't have to take on what's there, and I can still be okay when things are people are acting out around me, and I can choose to disengage. I give myself permission to leave. Doesn't matter what anybody thinks. I don't have to say anything. I just turn around and I walk out, because it's my responsibility to be a gatekeeper and keep myself grounded, strong, safe, and calm. So nobody else can do that. And then I can show up for the world from a strong place and be a good helper.
Fantastic. John, I'd like to mention the 12-step recovery. Folks, John was in AA for a while. I've been in it for 38 years. I remember also of the ACOA, the adult children. If you come from a dysfunctional home, a dysfunctional parents, dysfunctional partner, dysfunctional upbringing in your home, and you don't feel it, and like Donna, you have demons that you'd like to. No one's going to try and fix or save you, but they will share with you what they did to get better, and then you can copy what they did. So one of the organizations is ACOA. It's shown as www.adultchildren.org, and that's the for the inner child work. There's also www.aca.org. They're both the same organization. I don't know why they have two different titles for it, but they both are to do with adult children. There's also coda.org. Again, Donna mentioned earlier on about setting boundaries, but don't always say yes to do things for people. It's okay to say no. Yes and no are complete sentences. Don't burn yourself out trying to people please. If someone asks you to do something, occasionally just say no, even though you can do it. Just learn to set a boundary. So in work, someone says, "Can you work late tonight?" Sorry, no, I can't. Don't give any excuse or any reason why you can't. No, I can't. No, please, I'm really stuck. No, I can't. Ask somebody else. No, I can't. Why not? Because I can't. Just a simple no. No discussion. No, because when you get in discussion, they'll turn you, twist your arm to come back to work. So you learn. So CODA is for codependency. You learn to have boundaries and to say no. And you might be really, in the beginning, you might be, I was saying no to everybody, I was so extreme, but I needed to learn it was okay to say no. So I was saying no to everybody for over everything. They're kind of going, you can't keep saying no. And I was thinking, I have to keep saying no for the last 3 months so I know what it is to say no. So with my parents, my siblings, my boss, my girlfriend, I had to say no so many times, even when I could have done it, just to understand I'd spent some 27 years saying yes to everybody. I needed to learn to say no, and it was okay to say no. And when it got that balance where people started respecting my no, then I could start saying yes again. But it was a case of I had to practice it. Like Donna said, you keep practicing it until you feel comfortable with it. Mm-hmm. Then there's also a 12-step program for depression. I think it's the same thing. I think it's www.depression.org. Most of them finish in .org. They begin with www. Stick depression. If you put in 12-step for depression, you'll come across what the address is. Inner child, again, so on as adult children, and so on. There's Al-Anon if you live with dysfunctional parents or a dysfunctional partner. You can go to Al-Anon. If you're a teenager, you can go to Al-Ateen, which is really cool. It's all young people, all teenage, that work together and they share how they cope with dysfunctional parents. So if you need help, you don't have to pay for it. This is it's a free service. It's people coming together to help each other to recover. 12-step recovery, I love it. I designed a 12-step program called Trauma Recovery Anonymous. And when I sent it off to AA to see if they'd approve it, they told me it would take about 3 months. And suddenly I sent it off to AA, and about 48 hours later, they came back and said, we're going to accept it. So Trauma Recovery Anonymous is a 12-step program. It's in existence about 3 years. And again, it's for people with trauma. They can go to a 12-step program. So there are many different 12-step programs. There's gambling. There's 14 in total. There's one for gamblers, one for drug addicts, one for food, one for shopping. There's Clutters Anonymous for people who hoard in their house. So understand there is support out there. It doesn't all have to be paid for. I mean, psychologists, if you could afford to go to Donna, I think it'd be very beneficial to you to do that. Her book would be fantastic. For my own book, if you can't afford my book, go to the library. There's copies in the library. You can borrow it from the library. You may have to buy the book like Donna's to do the worksheets, but you can certainly take it out in the library to read it, to understand what you're getting into. There's nothing wrong with looking for resources in the library, on Spotify, on YouTube. All my Christian, I'm a Christian. I'm not a member of any denomination or any church. I don't believe in man-made religion, but I have my evangelists and my ministers that I love listening to, and most of them are on YouTube. Joseph Murphy, Emmett Fox. I could go on. These guys, and you mentioned Michael Singer, the Untethered Soul. I tell everybody now, if you want to get a book to really understand that you are a soul being in a physical body, check out Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul. And he wrote a second one after it, but it's a really powerful book to read. And again, go down to your library, take it out in the library, and then when you have the money, go and buy it. It's great to have your own copy, but don't not have a copy because you can't afford it. For now, go to your library and borrow it in the library until you have money, you get a job again, then you can go and buy these books and have them in your own library. Donna, thank you very much for coming on board. You were a breath of fresh air. What you've achieved, you definitely are a phoenix rising out of the ashes. I think what you've achieved is phenomenal. I'm so glad you came on to my show. I will, please God, in the future, have you back for a revisit to see how things are going. Maybe you'll have your podcast. You can tell me about that too. So if you'd like to say goodbye to the audience, guys, thank you very much for having us. If you were triggered, it was collateral damage. Okay, know that we do this out of love. We weren't here to trigger anybody. Donna, do you want to say a few words before you go?
Yes, I do. I just wish all that are listening healing blessings. Please believe in yourself and keep going because you're worth the work.